Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment in the record, along with any extraneous material immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, here to explain the amendment is my good friend from Iowa, Congresswoman Hinson, and I yield her 5 minutes.
The gentlewoman from Iowa is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania for yielding tonight. Madam Speaker, I rise today to call for immediate consideration of my See the Crisis Act. This legislation would prevent Vice President Kamala Harris from using taxpayer dollars to travel internationally before seeing the southern border crisis firsthand. Vice President Harris was named as the administration's point person on the illegal immigration crisis at our southern border 80 days ago, and this crisis is worsening by the day. Yet the Vice President has refused to go to the border herself and talk to the brave law enforcement officers, the men and women who are fighting this on the front lines. This out-of-sight, out-of-mind approach is a disgrace, Madam Speaker. But let's back up and look at how this crisis has developed on the Biden administration's watch. On day one of this administration, President Biden stopped construction of the border wall. Shortly after, he reinstated catch and release. Now, this turned on the green light at our border. It incentivized the historic surge of illegal immigration that we are currently experiencing in this country. Open border policies are music to the ears of the cartels, the drug smugglers, and the traffickers who make their living on human suffering. And make no mistake, business is good for cartels and drug smugglers under this administration right now. Snuck into this rule here tonight is a provision to set the spending levels for Congress. And these historic spending levels rise in nearly every category except for one, the Department of Homeland Security. And this sends a pretty clear message to the cartels that the U.S. government doesn't think it's a priority to stop them. Madam Speaker, I recently visited the border to see the crisis for myself, hear what those on the front lines are facing every day. And they told me they are completely overwhelmed. There are major vulnerabilities along our border. These are vulnerabilities that the cartels and the drug smugglers are exploiting every day. Border Patrol officers are apprehending sex offenders, gang members, even people on the terrorist watch list trying to come into our country illegally. And these are just the people that they are catching. Deadly drugs are pouring across the border in droves. Fentanyl seizures at the border have increased by 233% this year. 233%. When I was at the border, I heard from Democrat sheriffs, Republican sheriffs, about these devastating realities and the damage that is being inflicted on our communities. But apparently, even as the administration's point person on the illegal immigration crisis, hearing from those on the ground is too much to ask for the Vice President. She's been the border czar for 80 days. She's been to yarn shops. She's been to bakeries. And she just flew right over the crisis at our southern border to meet with foreign countries with the taxpayer's checkbook in hand. When asked why she hasn't visited the southern border, she laughed. She laughed, and this is not a laughing matter. The border crisis impacts the safety and security of every Iowan, of every American. Every state is a border state right now. And as members of Congress, regardless of our party, it is our job to hold the administration accountable when it is failing the American people. And right now, Vice President Harris, Madam Speaker, is failing the American people. She's failing law enforcement at the border. She's failing the families who will suffer because of the drugs coming across our border and falling into the wrong hands. Vice President Harris needs to see the crisis for herself and take action. And that is exactly what my See the Crisis Act will force her to do. This bill will prevent the Vice President from traveling internationally on the taxpayer's dime until she visits the southern border and reports back to the American people on how the administration will secure our border. So I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle tonight to join me in defeating the previous question and holding this administration accountable for the border crisis. Thank you, Madam Speaker.